This tutorial is going to introduce you to the where command. This is a super important command because it lets us limit the number of rows we have being returned. Say, for example, we're looking at our supplier table. I may want to choose which of these rows and which of these suppliers I actually see in a command. For example, I might want all the suppliers that are less than 5 in the ID, or more than 5, or exactly 5, or not 5. I might also want to do text comparisons. I might want to find all of the suppliers who are in California or who are not in California. I can also do other options for looking at addresses. Maybe I want to find anything that contains a certain text string, for example, West Virginia or West Fargo. We have an existing query, select star from suppliers. We're going to add in a new keyword called where, and we're going to give it a specific field to do some kind of test. For example, we might say where supplier ID is greater than 5. Now, I only see supplier ID 6 and up. I can also do less than 5. Now 1 through 4, less than or equal to 5, now 5 is included, or even not 5. So now I have 1 through 4 and 6 and up. The biggest thing to remember is you don't put any kind of punctuation in. So if this were dollars, for example, you would not want to write a dollar sign in front of it. Same thing if it's a long number, you don't want to put commas. The computer's going to have a trouble interpreting that, thinking that's a different part of your query. As long as you have just straight up numbers, you should be okay. Let's do a test for text. Let's look at the state field. Let's find everything that's from the state of California. We can also flip that over and turn it into a not equal to California. Now, one of the biggest things you need to remember here, though, is that this is case sensitive. In other words, if I have CA as lowercase, I don't get any responses. Same thing if I have an uppercase C or lowercase a, it's got to be exactly the same as the data that's in our table over here. The other option that's really helpful is the like keyword. The like keyword is really handy if I want to search for a certain value inside of the text value. Say, for example, I want to have all of the addresses that have the word Morgantown in them. If I write Morgantown, it returns only if it's an exact match, which I don't necessarily want. I want to have anything that's similar. So I'll use the like keyword. The like keyword allows me to put what's called wildcards. Now it says find anything where the address has the word Morgantown with anything in front or anything behind. You can also do things like search for all PO boxes or look for certain zip codes. When we're talking about where, it's also good to think about and or. When I use the where command, testing for one condition is pretty straightforward, but what about if I have two different logical tests? Say, for example, I want people that are in address 26505, but only those that are in the state of California. How do I get both of these things to be true? I'm going to use the AND command. I'm going to have AND state equal to CA. Now each row is going to be evaluated for two different logical tests. Either the first one has to be true, where address ends in 26505, and also the state has to be equal to California. I can also use the word or. Or says either of the two things can be true. Either the address ends in 26505 or the state ends in California. This is particularly helpful if I want to have a couple of match options. Say, for example, I want zip codes for both 26505 and 26506. I can have both of these be true. I have 55556666 in the return results. The key thing to remember with this, though, is that each of these are evaluated for each row. In other words, all of these logical tests are going to be run on Bajat and Stuns. If the first one is true, this will evaluate to true. Then it's going to test the second logical test, evaluate to false. Then it'll say true or false, which will result in true. I can have as many of these as I want. Say, for example, I add on other options like supplier ID is greater than 5. Now, any of these three options can be true, and we'll get the overall result. Now, one common problem is when you start doing and, What's happening here is that we're not getting any results. And this is because often when we talk about the and in English the language, we really mean or. So if I say I want everyone where the address is 26505 and 26506, really what I'm saying is that it could be either 5 or 6 because no one row is going to be both 505 and 506. So if you're having trouble, just remember you probably want to do an or if you're testing the same field multiple times. You can also wrap these in parentheses. So now the address has to be one of these two options, either 505 or 506. And then one of those two has to be true. And then in addition to that, I also want supplier ID greater than or equal to 5. So the key idea here is you just keep on adding on different conditions and tests for as much as helps you out.